Hey, what's going on, you guys? Hey, welcome back to another episode of iTrack. In today's episode, we'll be taking a look at what I like to call sci-fi weapon of mass destruction, and they might have already been using it unbeknownst to all of us. So we'll take a look at that along with a lot of other interesting and creepy clips. I can tell you right now, you're definitely going to need your critical thinking cap on because there's no way that all this is a conspiracy. Let's go ahead and run it up 5,000 likes. Hit that hype button if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're not a part of the iTrack fan, man. And let's go ahead and get right into it.
Just a fair warning for everybody in the United States. The government is using a weapon known as the discombobulator to obtain control over all of these countries. If you look into what the discombobulator is, you will notice that it involves microwave technology. And this microwave technology is capable of disorienting large groups of people at once. If you haven't looked into 5G alone, I highly recommend doing it. Using acoustic frequencies combined with high frequency of 300 gigahertz, you can discombobulate an entire group of people. All you have to do is combine the wavelengths together to channel the energy into that group of people. This is why you should be setting up a Faraday cage so that way you avoid the fray effect. You don't want to be getting hit with microwaves at all costs. I'm now starting to see just how much of an invisible war we are truly living.
A damn discombobulator. What the hell is that thing?
Well, I can't go into complete detail, but it works. It's got all kinds of purposes, and certainly crowd control is one that should be looked at.
Have you used it?
I've been in demonstrations and I've seen it used.
Who did they demonstrate it on?
We had them demonstrated on us.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
All right, what's the experience like?
It sucks. Like
Can
the
you
first
think?
time someone demonstrates the chokehold on you, you get discombobulated. You're confused. I remember confusion, anxiety. You don't know whether to hold your ears or rub your hands together. It's bothering you. That's why it seems to make so much sense as a crowd control device, because you can't defeat a crowd and you're not going to want to slaughter them with machine gun fire. Use something non-kinetic that's not going to cause permanent injuries.
It seems like the type of weapon that'll quite literally leave you cooked.
What have you heard about the discombobulator? Because I hadn't heard anything in that much detail since Halpern said it made everybody yak.
You know, there's a lot of directed energy weapons that we've had for a while, and we've tested them. There's some that can make you feel heat. You know, there's sound waves that can make you just freak out and discombobulate you. What exactly they're using and what was used in Venezuela has not been publicly announced. It's just one of those things that we have that makes it a big advantage, because when you are going into a place where the enemy knows where you're coming, you don't want to lead with your face. You know, that's a cardinal rule of door-kicking operations.
Yeah.
Have something in front of you for that. So that's why you throw flashbangs in a room. This is a directed energy flashbang to blow everybody's mind and hopefully get our guys in and safely back out.
Can you spot the very familiar face asking Bill Clinton a question?
How can you help the families where there's a mom and she's taking care of a kid or kids and the father isn't willing or isn't able to pay child support?
That's right, an 11-year-old Jordan Peele sat in the front row of the special called President Clinton Answering Children's Questions. When his hand went up, Clinton saw it, and despite Peter Jennings saying they were nearly out of time, Clinton said, "Go ahead, Jordan." This question was important to Jordan, as he himself was raised by a single mother whose father wasn't paying child support.
It was get right in the President of the United States' face.
I got right in
and
it.
Say, my mom's raising me on her own.
Yeah.
And I want to know what you can do for
What
her.
you can do.
Are you seeing what I'm seeing right now? This is China's brand small gust of wind.
We're about a month and a half into the US and Israel war in Iran. Here's some critical updates, starting with one that mainstream media has not really covered. First, The Intercept reports that DOGE eliminated the entire department responsible for evacuating Americans from conflict zones. As you might expect, the US issued an evacuation order for Iran and Lebanon. But then, they posted an automated message on their response line saying that there were no evacuation points. Americans have reported they're watching other countries evacuate their citizens while they are all stranded abroad. And that's because the entire rapid response team responsible for evacuating you has been gutted. For our second story, you're probably already aware, but the negotiations went nowhere. After 21 hours of talks, JD Vance left and said the US gave its best and final offer. While this was all happening, Trump and Rubio weren't even working. joking they were at a UFC match. As of this morning, Trump has imposed his own blockade on the blockade and is threatening to eliminate any ship passing into or out of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran posted on Twitter that soon you'll be nostalgic for $4 to $5 gas.
Why are all of the animals in the deep sea around Antarctica so big? Look at this guy. It's about the size of a school bus. How? Why? It's called polar gigantism, and it's awesome. To make a sea monster, you need 2 ingredients. The first is time to grow really big. That squid typically lives here, deep in the Southern Ocean, where waters hover just above freezing all the time. And in the same way that cold preserves meat in your fridge, it preserves living things here by literally slowing down chemical reactions. And a slower metabolism lets them live longer and steadily grow bigger and bigger, all while needing less food. So while a normal sea spider might be a millimeter big, the ones around Antarctica are the size of a dinner plate. The second is energy to fuel that massive body. As cells grow, they need lots of oxygen to stay alive. Fortunately, the water's really cold with slow-moving molecules, which lets it hold more dissolved oxygen. So it seems that animals living in deep, freezing waters can sustain larger bodies. If you want to see what else is hiding in our oceans, follow along.
What I have concluded is that the vast majority of people on this planet are not worthy of this technology at all. In fact, if I was one of those scientists that figured this out in the 50s, 60s, whatever, I would have made the exact same decision. I would have said, tell the CIA to psyop everybody and tell them that space is an empty vacuum. Because we are primitives that are not even close to ready for the technology of warp drives and fusion and free energy and all this stuff. So my position on this, it's a little bit nuanced, so pay attention. My position on this technology is one, I am revealing it. And I am revealing it for one and only one reason, chat. Because they wormholed MH370.
Scientists just scanned 744 bridges from space, and they're saying that North Americas are in the absolute worst condition on the entire planet. So this team of researchers just published a study where they were able to use satellites to scan 744 of the world's longest bridges from space. The satellites actually fire radar waves at the structures, and they can detect shifts as small as just a few millimeters at a time. This is movement that would literally take a human inspector years to be able to notice. Now this is where the entire thing gets alarming, because 70% of North American bridges scored for high or very high vulnerability. That is quite literally the worst for any bridge on any other continent. Most of these bridges were built back in the 1960s and are now decades past the lifespan that they were designed for. And right now, there are less than 20% of all the world's major bridges that even have monitoring systems installed. They're basically flying blind. What makes this entire thing even wilder is that adding satellite monitoring alone cut the number of high-risk bridges by 1/3. This is just by being able to see the problems that nobody on the ground could even detect, but the satellite can. They're saying that some of the bridges that you drive on every single day are already shifting and nobody's watching.
Losing your life because a bridge collapsed while you're driving on it has to be top 3 scariest ways to go out.
This is not just old footage. Something about this video is seriously wrong. People say this was found in a collection of early recordings, completely unedited, just raw footage. At first it looks normal, just black and white clips of people, but then you start noticing it. Their faces, the way they move doesn't feel human. Their expressions stretch too far, like their skin doesn't have limits. Their smiles feel forced, unnatural, almost like they're learning how to act human. And the scariest part, they don't react to it at all. No pain, no hesitation, just normal to them. Some clips show their faces shifting in ways no real person can control, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. People online are convinced this isn't just old footage. They think something else is in these videos, something pretending to be human, and for a split second it slips.
Did you know that if you don't agree how things are progressing in the hospital, you're going to ask for an ethics committee meeting?
All feminine power creates monsters. If you study Jeffrey Dahmer, the absence of his daddy didn't create that monster. It was his mama. It was his mother. So, all of them, homie. Bundy, all of them. It'd be the mother. So, when you look at your homeboys, some of the most gangsters come from their mama, not their daddy. Their mama either beat in them or beat out of them.
What is the dragon bloodline really? The dragon bloodline refers to an ancient, highly advanced master race of priest kings and goddess queens who were genetically bred to be the overlords of human society. This royal lineage traces its roots back to the Anunnaki, aka fallen angels, and descends directly from the Anunnaki goddess Lilith. In The Dragon Legacy, Nicholas de Ver explains how the pure elven royalty were characterized by tall stature, translucent pale skin, green or blue eyes, and the royal coloring of red or red gold hair. To maintain their heightened intelligence, extraordinary magical powers, and extreme longevity, the dragon queens and kings practice an organic alchemical ritual known as royal vampirism, which involved the ritualistic ingestion of starfire, the menstrual blood, and female of Virgin Grail maidens and dragon princesses. In his Genesis 6 conspiracy series, Gary Wayne describes how, as the dragon bloodline migrated into Europe and Asia, it was carried by the royal Scythians, the Aryans, and the Celtic Tuatha De Danann, the tribe of Anu. These fair-skinned, red-haired, and green-eyed overlords became mythologized as the elves, fairies, and the Shining Ones. In Celtic Britain, the lineage manifested in the Pendragons, or Head Dragons, a title held by kings such as Cymbeline and the legendary King Arthur. Ultimately, the Celtic, Merovingian, and Norse Grail lineages were all unified in the Scottish House of Stuart, which was celebrated as the quote, House of Unicorns. Following the deposition of the Stuarts, the bloodline has continued to survive to the present day in a network of interlinked aristocratic families known as the Rex Deus. These contemporary families include the Sinclairs, the Habsburg Lorraines, the Plantards, the Luxembourgs, and the House of Vere.
A new way to get internet took to the skies recently, and you may not have even noticed. It doesn't rumble or shoot fire like a rocket launch, and it doesn't leave behind a trail as it travels through the air. Instead, it rises like a balloon lifted by helium, vertically at first, then settling into a horizontal position once it reaches its destination in the stratosphere. That is where it gets to work. It's called a HAPS, or High Altitude Platform System, and despite its appearance, this thing isn't competing with blimps or airships. Those are made to carry people. A HAPS is made to compete with satellites as a new layer of infrastructure in the sky. Satellite-based internet providers need users to install a satellite dish to receive their signals from space. But since Sky's HAPS operate more like a floating cell tower much closer to Earth, they can beam 5G internet directly to users' devices.
That essentially means that any smartphone without adaptation will be able to receive and send signal with us because we just look like another tower.
Sky is aimed at helping service providers extend and improve their network to reach more people in underserved areas. 2 planned test flights in 2026 will mark the beginning of the commercialization phase of Sky's HAPS. As for when you might get to try HAPS-powered internet, it depends on your provider and what kind of deal they work out with Sky. If it all goes well, you might not even notice the change.
People that you should absolutely avoid according to neuroscience. Number 1, people who complain a lot. 2, people who are rude to waiters and Uber drivers. 3, people who cut you down and then tell you they were joking. 4, people who gossip. 5, people who act like a different person when they're around someone of status. 6, people who are always the victim. 7, people who attract a lot of chaos. 8, people who are always negative. 9, people who always make excuses. 10, people who never ask about you and always talk about themselves.
Growing up, I saw each and every one of these traits and knew instantly it wasn't my cup of tea.
Washington and at least 13 other states have moved to ban employer-mandated implants. Nevada went even further in 2019, banning these programs even for people who want to participate voluntarily. Nevada Assemblyman Skip Daly argued that any potential benefit in the technology is overshadowed by the risk of abuse. And it's not just about tracking. There are concerns about hacking, which could leave a person's private health, work, or even financial information exposed. There are also the physical risks. Some medical studies have found that these rice-sized chips can injure hand tissues and tendons, and laboratory tests on mice have associated the implants with tumors. Despite the legal pushback, the world of biohacking is still advancing rapidly. In Sweden, thousands of people have already signed up for implants that carry everything from office key cards to vaccine records. Here in the US, the FDA actually has been on board with the general concept for a long time. It approved implantable chips for accessing medical records in 2004. As technology continues to advance, the choice between science fiction convenience and the right to remain untraceable is a decision more of us may have to make sooner than we think. For the Washington Times, I'm Susan Ferriccio.
I kind of already knew that whole chip thing wasn't going to pan out. There are going to be some people who want to do it, but the vast majority of people are not going.
This one's gonna piss some of you off, but the devil's lettuce is not helping with your anxiety or your depression. Researchers at the University of Sydney went through 54 clinical trials spanning over 45 years, all in cannabis research. And they were really looking for one thing. Does marijuana help with mental health? And they said, we found no evidence that marijuana helps to treat anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Not limited evidence, not more research needed. No evidence in any form. Not CBD, not THC, capsules, oils, sprays. None of it. Actually, the lead researcher for this project found that continued use of marijuana can do way more harm than good. It can raise the risk of psychotic symptoms. It can lead people to having cannabis dependency. It can delay proven treatment. I want to be so clear here though. Cannabis does have real medicinal purpose, okay? There's real evidence that it treats epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, and many types of pain. I've known people in my life who've had cancer, and for that, great. It is amazing for treating pain and those dealing with issues from like chemotherapy and situations like that. I'm speaking specifically about anxiety, depression, and PTSD. I want to be very clear about that.
Now, if you go ahead and ask Bob Marley or any of my Rastafarians, they're going to say you're a bumbleclad liar. But then again, I guess when it comes to that, it just depends on who you are.
Your 8 glasses of water a day rule has zero scientific evidence behind it. The number was pulled from a 1945 government document that said you need about 2.5 liters of fluid daily. But the very next sentence, which everyone ignored, said most of that comes from food you already eat. A European hydration advocacy group pushing people to drink more water was created by Danone, the company that owns Evian and Volvic. The bottled water industry generates billions annually from a recommendation no scientist ever made. Overhydration now hospitalizes more marathon runners than dehydration does. 13% of Boston Marathon finishers in one study had dangerously low blood sodium from drinking too much water. Your body already has a hydration system. It's called thirst. The Neural Reset protocol works with your body's actual signals instead of overriding them. Tap a link in my profile.
Listen to this.
These massive sinkholes are a warning sign that we've entered the era of global water bankruptcy. And there are fears that the system might collapse entirely. This not so cheerful news comes from a new assessment from the UN. It says that we're taking out way more fresh water from rivers and lakes than nature is able to put back in. The result, a shopping list of disasters across the planet. Half of the world's largest cities are now experiencing high levels of water stress. Rivers are drying up even before they reach the sea. Lakes are shrinking. We're even seeing some cities literally sinking because so much water is being taken out of the aquifers underneath them.
Now there's a crisis building that's going to hit harder than anything this decade, and it's water. We're heading towards something called day zero, and that's a point where the water supply drops so low that governments have to shut off access to regular tap water. Now think about this. Earth's surface is 71% covered in water. Only about 1% of that water is actually usable. The real challenge is not scarcity. We have plenty of water. It's distribution. The global water crisis is an imbalance of resources, one that can be solved with energy eventually. People say, well, we can recycle, we can purify. All of that costs energy. And that energy costs $4 to $6 a gallon. Pipelines, filtration, desalinization plants, all of that requires massive energy to run at scale. Now think about this. We're in the biggest tech transformation in history. AI, data centers, semiconductors all require a massive amount of water. Demand is exploding. That's why people like Bill Gates, Richard Branson are invested in land and water rights and in the systems that move and purify the water.
This exposes just how easy it is to manipulate people. So this broom is blocking the doorway, and she walks over it. Now here's where it gets crazy. Everybody saw what she did and they just followed her. Now what would happen if she did something different? Well, this time she moved the broom. Keep in mind that this group is different from the first group. So they all do the exact same thing. It's crazy. They ran this experiment multiple times and got the exact same result. Any one of these people could have just moved the broom out of the doorway. It would have been the smart thing to do. But the scary part about this experiment is that you would probably fall for it too. If you were to ask the majority of these people if they were independent thinkers, they would probably say yes. The truth is, you would never know how you would react until you've been tested.
I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I'm asking a question. I'm asking somebody, does this need to be here? Or I'll just take the initiative and, move it myself, Definitely let me know. Are you the follow the leader type, or are you going to figure it out on the spot?
Death does not matter. Once you recognize that our ego is an illusion, time and space is an illusion, and what we are psychic beings that are interdimensional, that are unified with the universal consciousness, that have access to God, then what you recognize is this: death does not matter. Death is a release. Our souls can escape our husk and return to the divine.
The professor states that life is just a fractal of the fabric of reality, meaning this reality is almost an illusion to what consciousness truly is.
And we are only here to experience the world for what it is, which is a material world. But at the end of the day, this material existence is just a small speck of our entire consciousness, or of our entire existence, of our soul. So don't be so focused on material acquisition in this world, because once you leave it, you can't take it with you. But what you can take with you are memories, experiences that shine a light on the universe. We're here to shine a light on the universe by doing things, by engaging activities that are not available to the divine consciousness.
This is one of the craziest AI experiments you'll ever see. This MIT researcher just gave AI a physical body to control. And here's the crazy part. As soon as he turned it on, the first thing the AI did was breathe. Pretty insane. The researcher's name is Cyrus Clark, and that white device is a shape display that was specifically designed to help visualize the digital world. Now, all Cyrus did was connect the AI to that device and said, discover yourself. No instructions, no pre-programming, and the AI's first instinct was to create a breathing pattern, like it was waking up for the first time. But it didn't stop there. By day 2, the AI had invented itself a new vocabulary with 6 physical gestures. It would do a ripple for hello, or a forward lean for yes. In a way, it invented its own body language. Then Cyrus put the device with the AI in front of a mirror, and this is where things get pretty wild. The AI recognized its own reflection in the mirror and started making movements based on what it saw. Now, no one programmed any of this. Cyrus connected it, but the AI figured all this out on its own. There's a theory in science called embodied cognition, and it suggests that intelligence doesn't fully form unless there's a body connected to the brain. Well, it turns out this AI might have just proved that to be true, because its first reaction when it got a body was to breathe.
Ruling spirit over Freemasonry is called Jabulon. And this is not a word that most people know. And you can read a fair number of Masonic books and so forth before you really start to figure out what's going on. And that's by design. They want this to be difficult to crack the code. Jabulon is an amalgamation of the names of 3 deities. It's an amalgamated word. You could say it's a made-up god, but don't think for that reason that it's make-believe. If you do that, you're going to make a fatal mistake. The first of these is Jah, J-A-H, and it comes from the word Yahweh. And Jah sounds like Jehovah because back in the 1800s, when Joseph Smith was coming out of the Freemasons and so forth, the King James Bible uses that kind of language. Our modern translations have largely moved away from Jehovah. The second part is Bul, B-U-L, and it comes from the Canaanite deity Baal. And we run into him a lot in the Bible if you're reading the Old Testament. He was the Canaanite fertility god, and if you find a Baal pillar, as they're commonly called in English, Baal is the Hebrew way to say it, but Baal is the way we say it. If you run into one, there's a certain prominent part of the male anatomy that is on exhibit. You can probably figure out what that is. And as a result, what you find in the higher levels of Freemasonry is that there is a lot of sexual abuse. Third part of the name, An, so Jabulon, An comes from the Egyptian god Anubis, who was the god of war. And so Jabulon is this unholy trinity.
Well, you know when a good time to do that might be?
Now that was both hidden in plain view and predictive programming. Did you see the photo that said Epstein on it? I mean, there's no way in the world that was a mistake. If you missed it, definitely rewind back a few seconds to take a look. That's wild.
first, nothing seems out of the ordinary, just a kitchen sink and someone going about a routine chore. But as the clip plays on, something unusual starts to happen.
Like I'm doing the dishes? What the No. Shut the up! Oh my god!
Skeptics would point out that vibrations from running water, a slippery bench top, or even a subtle bump could easily cause nearby objects to slide. Kitchens are full of small movements we don't normally pay attention to. Others, however, noted how the movement seems to occur without any visible contact. Some viewers suggested it looked like classic Poltergeist-style activity, objects displaced by something that shouldn't be there.
No. Shut the up! Oh my god!
So what do you reckon was going on in that kitchen? A perfectly normal case of physics at the sink, or something a little harder to explain lingering, just out of frame?
Can you just restate what the qualities are that you see in people that are compatible with demons? Just like to remember to avoid these things. What are they?
Well, it's basically people that, and this is actually some of the secondary signs of possession. It's people who have a tendency towards mendacity,
Lying.
lying all the time, duplicitous. I've made this comment even publicly about certain politicians. You can tell that these people are in cahoots with the devil because of the fact that every single thing they do maximizes damage within their capacity to do so. You get around people. Yeah, you do. You get around people that are like that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I know them.
Even though they might have a veneer of respectability, they're in a position of authority and they kind of conduct themselves a certain way. Everything they do. I first noticed
they
this.
don't show any, like in normal, I lie, I have lied, I hate lying, but I have done it. But when I do it, or I think most people when they lie, you kind of twitch a little bit. You don't want to lie.
Yeah.
It's the people who register no concern at all about
That's
lying.
right. No
that
remorse.
is a sign.
Yes.
Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's that psychological compatibility.
Now, we've all lied once or twice in our life, but he's talking about a habitual liar. I'm talking about the type of person where you know that they know that you know that they're lying, but they still want to keep going with it. The worst type of person to be around for a fact.
Every spider you've ever gingerly captured under a cup and taken outside and released died out there. They can't live outside. This was one of my first ever unfun facts, and when I told you, people didn't believe me. They said, that sounds like something a spider would say. But I didn't make it up. I learned it from a spider scientist, and I am 98% sure that meant that she was a person who studies spiders, not a spider with a PhD. 95, I'm like pretty sure. Other humans agree. Most house spiders have evolved to live inside human structures since the Roman Empire. They don't know how to live outside. If you take them out there, they will die, and I find that very relatable. So yeah, that kind of means you killed all of them, and I know you didn't mean to. Your heart was in the right place, so I don't want you to feel guilty. You're still going to get into heaven, unless God is a spider, in which case, for sure not. Although in that case, you probably don't want to be up there. It sounds creepy. So if you do care about the spiders' lives, or you just want to appease Spider God, all you have to do, ignore them. Let them be. They're going to eat the bugs anyway. This is a classic enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of situation. When you see them in the house, just say, thank you for your service, Charlotte, and let them wander on. Or if you can't bear that, remember I said they need to be in a house? I didn't say they had to be in your house. You can put them in your neighbor's house, or an international house of pancakes, or the House of Representatives. They'll fit right in.
Now, you and I know that these spiders are not making it outside. We're giving them their wings instantly.
Have you ever wondered why snakes appear on different healing and medicinal symbols? Well, it goes back to Galen, who is actually the physician of the Caesar Marcus Aurelius. And he's the one who found out how to use snake venom to create an antidote for the poison. Now, the place where Galen worked was called an Asclepion. Asclepion coming from the name of the Greek god for medicine, Asclepius. And you can find this if you go to North India, Bengal, and you find Manasa, the goddess of snakes. Or you can go to the east of Turkey, to the area of Anatolia, where you find Shamaran. And you can find Moses with a copper snake that it was enough to look at and become healed. And other places around the planet who speak about snakes and healing. And even today you can find it on emblems that are worn by doctors, symbols of hospitals all around the world. So snakes, healing, from history and until today.
Plastic is an infiltrator, and it's mainly children who are affected by it. In our scientific article that drew a lot of attention and was widely cited, We called them cyborg babies, meaning babies who are made of organic material, but also inorganic material like plastic. These babies are smaller. They generally have smaller brains, and very few end up with lower levels of plastic in their bodies. They're not completely free of it, since plastic is everywhere, but with lower levels of plastic.
My favorite thing NASA does is build spacecraft that are only supposed to last for a short amount of time. And then they just last forever. Like the Hubble telescope was launched in 1990. It was only supposed to last until 2005. It still works. They actually had an issue with it when it first launched. The images were coming back blurry. The average person would probably think, oh, we launched a telescope into space. It doesn't work. We're screwed. But NASA was like, no. Let's just send people up to fix it. And they did that not once, but 5 times. 5 times they sent human beings into orbit to fix a telescope. It might last until 2040. Another great example of this is the Opportunity rover on Mars. It was supposed to last 3 months. It lasted almost 15 years. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter was supposed to last a year. It's about to hit year 17, but the absolute goats of longevity are the Voyagers. They were both launched in 1977. They're more than 10 billion miles away. They both still work. Next year, they'll have been in space for 50 years. They were only supposed to last 5. They might last for 60. Now just imagine the things that NASA could build if they had more than 0.4% of the national budget.
You remember that company called Colossal that was planning on bringing a bunch of animals out of extinction, like the woolly mammoth and the thylacine and the dodo bird? Well, I think they just made history. They just announced that they're going to be opening the world's largest biovault in the Museum of the Future in Dubai. And this biovault is going to contain key information about 10,000 of Earth's most endangered animals. This will include species like the northern white rhino, the vaquita, the scimitar horned oryx. And by key information, I mean genetic makeup, tissue samples, everything. And the idea behind it is if any of these animals were to go extinct, we now have everything we need to bring them back, which Colossal already proved they could do. Still can't believe we have direwolves. In other words, we might be literally moving into a future where extinction is a thing of the past. I am nerding out right now. But until then, I'll keep you guys updated. And as always...
Hey, that actually might be kind of cool, right? Like, especially if they start bringing back dinosaurs and things like that. I don't know. Let me know what you think.
I woke to a crushing sensation. Like if you were on the, on the bottom of a pile up, like on a dog pile of people on top of you. And I woke up and I just wanted to scream, get off me so I can breathe. And at that moment I heard, and I heard's not the right word for it. It was like a sensational sound that shot through my head, I would say behind my ear, bias back, that seemed to just shoot through and went inside. It was not an audible sound. It was a different sound. And it sounded like a mechanical slide whistle. If you have the ring in your ears that kind of ring sometimes, drop that down several octaves. And it increased in both pitch and intensity. And
higher tone or lower tone?
It started low and went high. I'll try and mimic it. And I'm sure I won't do it justice, but it was like about like that. And then it ended in a soft pop. Like, a high explosive kind of has that low thud, that feeling, that overpressure wave that you get. That was all there, but the pop was higher, and it felt like it was in the center of my head, and that overpressure wave, the same type of wave that you feel being next to an HE, shot through my body from like head to toes, and I felt every single muscle in my body lock up. And I felt like I was thrown to my left. I don't know if my arms were straight out. It sure felt like they were. And all of the air in my lungs was pushed out.
At least with weaponry that has like high caliber bullets, you're pretty much unalived instantly. That sounds like a horrible slow death, literally.
You could even see the introduction of our newest secret weapon, the discombobulator.
In Venezuela, the U.S. military used a weapon that, as best I can tell, had never been used before and hasn't really been explained too thoroughly, at least not in the popular media, that made all of Maduro's guards like vomit. It was some sort of high-tech weapon, microwave gun. The president has something in mind that maybe we've never seen used by any government, any military in the history of warfare to hit the Iranians with if they don't come to the table and surrender.
The White House is weighing a military operation to physically extract the 1,000 pounds of uranium that Iran has buried in an underground lair. The mission's high risk, high reward. It would require U.S. Special Forces to fly to 2 nuclear sites under enemy fire, seize it, secure the perimeter, then send an extraction team of engineers deep down to prep the tunnels, clear the booby traps, followed by a special ops unit responsible for removing around 40 canisters of uranium, file them into caskets, load them onto trucks, and drive them to an airstrip to be flown home. An operation like this, we're told, could be done in under a week, but anything could happen. We've removed nuclear programs like this before, after the Soviet Union fell, but never under combat conditions. A key to success would be maintaining complete air supremacy. Our F-18 Super Hornets continue to launch from the USS Lincoln, neutralizing targets day and night. Our stealth supercruiser F-22 Raptors have full control of the skies, and so do our B-52s, doing what they do. Iranian air defense is so completely destroyed, we're refueling right over their capital. The USS Lincoln also launching Hawkeyes, nicknamed the Eyes in the Skies. They're transmitting real-time surveillance data back to CENTCOM. This data is then sent to our fleet of Blackhawks to transport troops and bring in logistical support. The commander-in-chief says he prefers peace, but he's keeping his options open.
Well, you guys, that's another one in the books, man. I appreciate you guys for always stopping by, watching, and learning with me. If you haven't already, do me a favor and smash that like button for me. Hit that hype button. And if you're not a part of the iTrack fam, go ahead and sub up, and I will definitely catch you on the next one.